Is there any way that the title race isn't over?
No.
Even the Arsenal players at the end of that game knew their race was run. They're not going to slip up, are they? And Arsenal don't look capable of winning enough matches to really put any scoreboard pressure on them.
To have lost one game all season is remarkable. I don't feel like Arsenal can overturn this 11-point deficit. So for me, it's all over. We're never really allowed to talk about Pep Guardiola, but I thought the changes were petulant yesterday. The 77 minutes to bring on Diaz, Gundogan and Kovacic, it felt to me as if that, we know this game's lost, even though we've got loads of the ball, but we're just going to get some minutes in the legs of Diaz.
It was more like, these are the players that I'm going to use going forward, and the ones that I ain't going to use, I'm not going to bring them on.
Got a great player in Mo Salah.
Yeah, what does he have to do to win the Ballon d'Or, Troy?
His numbers are fantastic. His consistency is unbelievable, but at this moment in time, it doesn't make you, get that warm feeling inside, like, oh my God, look how great and gracious this person is. So I think that is unfortunately what holds him back. With Mo, when we see the great work that he does, there's also the missed chances. There's also the times the ball bounces off his shin and goes out of play. Do you know, again, by the way, we're really, really nitpicking at this point. But I think just those things, he's not as gracious on the eye.
It's Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, and talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. We've also got alongside us the former Watford, Walsall and Birmingham City striker, Troy Deeney is here. Now, us wasters usually get together on a Friday, but the Fun Boy Friday crew is back together on this maudlin Monday to enjoy a little bit of positive vibes, trying to inject a little bit of positivity into the remaining few weeks of the season. The title race seems to be all but done. Relegation is sorted. It is just the race for fifth place, but what a compelling race that is. I mean, Troy, what are you looking forward to most between now and the end of the season? The Oasis Tour, Cheltenham, the Snooker World Championships, maybe even lambing season?
Lambing season? No, listening to Alex Crook talk about how good Cheltenham is, we are there for a couple of shows. Well, I'm there for a couple of shows, so I'm interested to see how that works out. I'm interested to see how Nottingham Forest deal with this little blip at this moment in time. Can Eddie Howe continue to work his magic? The stat last night, Sam, and I'm sure you know this, but Crookie won't. They've won 13 of the last 16 matches in all comps.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. So they had a great run. I think they're the ones that could potentially finish third. And then what's going to happen with Spurs? Are they going to continue? Are Man U ever going to win? There's loads of questions that need to be answered.
Okay, so we'll get into it. Crookie, thank God for the Champions League, Europa League, FA Cup and Carabao Cup. Don't worry, by the way, talkSPORT's got all that covered too, because that's where the excitement is going to be.
Well, I'm looking forward to May the 25th when the Premier League season finishes as a Man United fan, to be honest. I can't come soon enough.
Welcome to Premier League All Access. We're here every week, twice a week for the next 12 weeks. I promise you we'll find something to talk about. Let's kick off with the league winners. League likely to winners. Champions elect, it's Liverpool. Well, this was a comfortable performance, a routine win. The gap is now 11 points for Liverpool, albeit with a game in hand. Troy, is there any way that the title race isn't over?
No. You'd have to look at that dominant Liverpool performance yesterday. I know they didn't have a lot of the ball, but when you watched it, and you were there, Sam, I'm sure you felt it in the stadium. No matter what Man City did, they wasn't going to score. And every time Liverpool went forward, it just felt like they could score if they really wanted to. And to have lost one game all season is remarkable. I don't feel like Arsenal can overturn this 11-point deficit. I know they've got a game in hand, but they've got their own problems and their own struggles. So for me, it's all over.
Yeah, I said it was comfortable, but it did take a hell of a lot of effort to perform in that manner. See Dominic Szoboszlai on the final whistle for details. Crook, the supercomputer says that Liverpool have a 96.69% chance of winning the league. It is all over, isn't it? You were at Arsenal on Saturday. It's finished.
Yeah, and I think actually even the Arsenal players at the end of that game knew their race was run. Only 2 shots on target. One of them, speculative long ranger from Calafiori. They look like a club who've run out of ideas. And actually, because of the injuries they've had, are feeling a bit sorry for themselves. I'm going to have to mention our own GOAT, Adrian Durham, at this stage, who was telling anyone who would listen at lunchtime in the press box press room on Saturday that Arsenal were going to win the league. Liverpool were having a wobble. City would react after what happened in the Bernabeu. And I said, are you mad? I said, Liverpool are going to win there and they're going to win well. And of course, Arsenal didn't even do their part of the bargain. So he's now claiming it was some kind of mind tricks. But he was convinced that there was a title race. Maybe he was just trying to do it for the benefit of the listener. But yeah, they're home and hose, Liverpool. I think I'm right in saying they've got 7 home games left as well.
Yeah.
The bulk of the games they've got left are at home. So they're not going to slip up, are they? And Arsenal don't look capable of winning enough matches to really put any scoreboard pressure on them.
I think that's the point now, Alex. That even if they were to slip up, let's say 3 times, could we see Arsenal winning out? And I don't think we can at this moment in time. Without Bukayo Saka, they look bereft of somebody they can think of on their own and have a little bit of freedom and isn't afraid to do something. Odegaard's not shooting now. And it just looks as if they're just a bit one-dimensional. Said the same yesterday with Man City. Becoming, without Haaland, they're one-dimensional.
I thought what's really interesting is that we say that they've had a wobble, Liverpool. I mean, Adrian said they had a wobble. I don't think they did have a wobble. And hear me out here, because if you go back and you look at the run, which was considered to be a wobble, they won every one but 4 of their opening 27 matches only under Arne Slot. Since January the 1st, they've won 8 of 15. That can't really be a wobble when you look at the actual fixtures, because the 3 losses are Tottenham in the first leg of a 2-legged semi-final, PSV with a weakened team, Plymouth with a weakened team, and the draws were against Forest and Villa, who are good sides, and derby matches against Everton and Manchester United, which actually, in the grand scheme of things, are just good results. And if you watched the game yesterday, it was a very different game. They sat a little bit deeper, invited a little bit more pressure, and then they attacked the spaces and attacked them really well. It was tactically so astute. And then once they got themselves in front in the game, they just backed off, blocked up. And in truth, they had the better chances even in the second half when they were defending more than attacking.
Yeah, in the second half, Sam, the in-game tactical tweak was brilliant, I thought, because Doku to start the game was really good. Going against Trent, he had him, didn't he, 2 or 3 times, and then they just little tweak where they had an extra body over there. So whenever Doku went past somebody, that was 2 and 3 people he had to beat, and it was just at that point they just blocked him out. There's a bit on Match Today, I think you saw it, Sam, where Virgil van Dijk's literally walking. It's like it's a Sunday leisurely stroll at the Etihad. It's fantastic. So I think they're brilliant. Mr. Crook did say on Friday, this is not a great Liverpool team.
Yes.
And I wonder if he still stands by that.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, it's not really fair that they've now started to score set-piece goals that are wonderfully crafted as well. So they're becoming multi-dimensional. I mean, look, you can't only lose one game, be 11 points clear at the top of the Premier League if you're not an incredibly good side, Alex.
Incredibly good and great are 2 different words, aren't they? Just on the set pieces, by the
marginal
way.
Marginal gains.
No, but they're doing really well on set pieces. Don't paint a mural with the set piece coach, because it can all go badly wrong if you start doing stuff like that. But my point was, I think when you look back at the history of the Premier League, we can all agree that Fergie built a couple of great sides at United. Arsenal's invincibles by going the season unbeaten have to be classed as great. I think Mourinho built a great Chelsea team as well. I think even the Liverpool team that won the league were better under Jurgen Klopp than this Liverpool team, but I'm not taking anything away from them. They've been the most consistent team in what I think quality-wise, when you look at the big clubs, is not a vintage Premier League season, and that was my point.
I'm going to list every single other winner of the Premier League and say that Liverpool aren't as good as them. But I'm not taking anything away from them, says Alex Crook. The thing is how could you expect Arne Slot to have crafted a great team over the course of the last 7 months with no new signings and it being his first season? I mean, you're not exactly giving him a chance. The guy is going to win the Premier League in his first ever iteration of taking part in the division. He's won pretty much everywhere. He doesn't need to be great this season, but he might be in the future, especially if they keep going at this trajectory.
Yeah, and I think you have to give him credit for what he's done, but they've also benefited from the circumstances. None of us expected Manchester City to decline in the way they have. Arsenal are not as good as they were last season. That's before you even start talking about United and Spurs and Chelsea, actually. I'm sure we'll come on to them. But they're very quickly turning into the mid-table team that I think you feared they would be, you and Andy Jacobs, the doom merchants, when they were flying high earlier in the season. So I think they've taken full advantage. And as I say, they're a very good team. I don't think they're a great Premier League team. They've got a great player in Mo Salah.
Yeah, what does he have to do to win the Ballon d'Or, Troy?
Keep going with what he does. I was having this conversation with Joe Hart yesterday because he didn't get any votes, did he, this time around? And I think he was not even in the top 10 in the African Player of the Year as well. I just feel like he's harshly treated because, when you watch Mo Salah, he's great and his numbers are exceptional, but he doesn't make you feel like a Thierry Henry, like a Eden Hazard did. Like when you're just like, you feel like you're blessed to even be watching it. And I just think that kind of goes against him. His numbers are fantastic. His consistency is unbelievable. But at this moment in time, it doesn't make you, I don't know, get that warm feeling inside like, oh my God, look how great and gracious this person is. So I think that is unfortunately what holds him back.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I think he's absolutely magnificent to watch, and some of the goals he scores are brilliant. I mean, I remember going back to one of the best goals I've ever seen him score was down at Watford, actually. He scored a wonderful goal one afternoon. I can't even remember what it was, but he sort of jinked in. And
he did Daddy Rose, played the ball over the top and he put inside, put it in.
Sensational. Like stuff like that is just amazing. There was one moment yesterday when, remember, the guy's in his 30s now and he's taking on someone like Josko Guardiola, who is a lot younger than him, maybe even 10 years younger than him. And there was one point yesterday where the ball was played down the channel. He picks it up. He's running with the ball, and he just turns on the speed and just zooms past Guardiola. And you just think, wow, how on earth is he able to still do that?
I totally take that point, Sam. But again, even with the speed, when you see that, and then you've seen like a Kylian Mbappe run, they're both really quick and they're both really powerful. But there's like a graciousness to Mbappe that I think gets on your eye. You notice that, like, oh my God, it's effortless when he's doing it. I think with Mo, when we see the great work that he does, there's also the missed chances. There's also the times the ball bounces off his shin and goes out of play. Do you know, again, by the way, we're really, really nitpicking at this point. But I think just those things, he's not as gracious on the eye, was what I'd say.
Thrashed by Arsenal, thrashed by Tottenham, beaten by Real Madrid twice in 2 weeks, and now beaten by Liverpool without too much trouble on Sunday. On the session, I asked Mickey Gray if he thought that Pep Guardiola would still be the manager in August. What do you think, Crook?
Well, there's the conspiracy theory, isn't there, knocking about that he's not actually put pen to paper on that new contract and he's going to leave at the end of the season as planned. But no, I think he will stay because I think he'll see it as his responsibility to oversee the rebuild. I think even he is probably struggling to explain the drop-off. Maybe too many players coming to the end at the top level at the same time. They've invested, obviously, in youth. I think Marmoush, again, showed in flashes yesterday that he's going to be a good Premier League player. And I know he didn't managed to keep out Liverpool, but I think Kusanov actually did really well against Vinicius Junior in midweek as well, out of position. So I think there are signs of recovery, but it's going to take a while. And I would look at some of the other signings they've made. What does the future hold for Jack Grealish realistically at the end of this season? When you look at his numbers this year, Savinho, is he the type of player that's going to get Manchester City dining back at the top table? Same with Jeremy Doku, who in flashes has looked brilliant, but doesn't really do it on a consistent basis. So I do think you have to go back over the last few windows and look at the recruitment. Even Josko Guardiola, the jury's still out for me on him as being a really top defender. So maybe that's why the change of sporting director came about, because we've never really been given an explanation for that, have we?
Well, we mentioned that earlier in the season, didn't we? Recruitment has been accelerated, though, at Manchester City. One report this week suggested that a transfer ban would be part of their punishment should they be found guilty of the 115 charges. Have they done enough with Kusanov, Hayes, as we must call him, Marmoush, to suggest that they can still compete should there be restrictions placed upon them, Troy?
No, not at all. Not with the talk of potentially 8 senior pros leaving, Kevin De Bruyne, Jack Grealish, as you just say, Crooked, and the like leaving. If they was to get a ban, they would have to look at their youth system. Again, we're never really allowed to talk about Pep Guardiola, but I'm not sure if the young man is injured, but how come there's no young striker on the bench? Haaland's out. You've got the boy they bought from West Ham who played against Mbama. He looks like he's made in that same mould. Big, 6 foot plus, runs on the shoulder, not even on the bench. And then yesterday, I thought the changes were petulant yesterday. I thought the changes were, when you're 2-0 down and you're looking for some creative spark, to bring on young McAtee, but then that 66 minutes he did that. Leave Jack Grealish on the bench. Leave Bernardo Silva on the bench. Nunes, who again they brought in the summer. Do you get what I mean, though, Sam? In terms of like it seemed petulant at 77 minutes to bring on Diaz, Gundogan, and Kovacic. It felt to me as if that, we know this game's lost, even though we've got loads of the ball, but we're just going to get some minutes in the legs of Diaz and stuff. It
is interesting that you say that. It was more like, these are the players that I'm going to use going forward, and the ones that I ain't going to use, I'm not going to bring them on. So, was it sending a signal that Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish are on their way? We're just going to use the ones. And actually, Mickey Gray was saying this to me yesterday. He said once they get into that situation where they're guaranteed a top 4, top 5 place and they're in the Champions League next year, which, let's be honest, they probably will secure that over the course of the next few weeks and months. And once they've done that, you'll just see constant use of the players that he wants going forward rather than using some of the old stages that obviously they're going to try and move on in the summer.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I think he did the same against Brentford. I think he was at that game, Crookie, when they 2-0 up and they got 2-2 in the last minute.
Yeah, he took off Foden, didn't he? He scored twice.
Yeah, it just seems at times that like he's experimenting in weird positions. You say they're going to finish in the top 4. I was brave enough to say I thought they'd finish second, but at this moment in time, you would argue that Newcastle are on a better run of form, Bournemouth are on a better run of form, Aston Villa are coming on an ascendancy, and also Brighton. They're 4 points behind. You could even go as far as Fulham, 5 points behind them in 11th. 10th.
This race for the top 5 is hotting up. I can't wait for the next few weeks.
And Crookie wants the season to be over.
Yeah, Crookie, God, you're miserable.
It's been a long season. It's been a long season.
Right, okay, let's move on now for some of the other games from the weekend, starting off at the Emirates Stadium. This was supposed to be the season that Arsenal got even closer to Manchester City. What went wrong, Crook? Apart from we didn't sign a striker. We all know that.
I think Troy's already mentioned that Bukayo Saka is the one player who does things off the cuff. Brings something different to the team. So as much as they've missed Kai Havertz as the focal point in attack, and Marino really struggled as that false number 9 starting the game, I think Saka has been such a huge loss to them in terms of draining confidence from his teammates, as I've already mentioned. But I think we've got to give the credit to West Ham as well. The blueprint was laid down on how to get the better of Arsenal by Everton. Actually, I think you were with me, Troy, weren't you? When it was 0-0 at the Emirates, and Sean Dyche put everybody behind the ball, made no real attempt to win the game. The difference on Saturday was that West Ham had a plan to hit on the counter-attack using Bowen and Kudus and Wan-Bissaka, who was fantastic down the right-hand side, and that's where the goal was made, really, with Bowen heading in unmarked. Adrian gave Declan Rice a bit of stick on air for not tracking his runner, but they were so defensively disciplined, just like Everton, but they had the weapons to hurt Arsenal as well. And as I say, I think Graham Potter deserves all the credit in the world. Young Ollie Scholes came in as a wing-back, first Premier League start for him, looked right at home. I thought Cresswell, as a left-sided centre-back, did a good job as well. Thomas Soucek was basically making it 6 at the back when they were out of possession. He had a really good game. So from a West Ham perspective, it was perfect. For Arsenal, the atmosphere was flat, the body language of the players was flat, and you just couldn't see where their goal was coming from.
Who was at fault for that first goal, Troy? Because it was a counter-attack that started from deep. The cross was a good one from Wan-Bissaka. Rice appears to sort of be looking over his shoulder, expecting somebody else to have intervened at that moment as Bowen is lurking behind him to put the ball in the net. Who should have taken responsibility?
This one falls on Deck, unfortunately. So I think the look you're looking at, he keeps an eye on Bowen 6 times. And I think just right at the last minute, I think he's expecting Bowen to run on to Partey. But Partey does a little look to the side. So that little half a second where he stops allows the space for... It's a great ball. It's a great header. It was a really good goal. But I think if we were Arsenal and we were breaking it down, we'd be saying, well, definitely you can see him until somebody takes that says, Deck, I've got him, or my man, or gives you a signal. You have to track him right to the end. And unfortunately, that was it. He also came off, didn't he? It was about 65 minutes.
Yeah.
He seems to be playing. I think that West Ham game was a little bit something to him. He's still a little bit emotionally attached because last year he didn't play great in that game as well. But also, no one's talking about the fact that Souček seems to suggest to Mr. Crook that they already knew the team. And that's better been brushed under the carpet. But when that was happening at Man United, there was a full inquiry and this can't happen. But it seems to suggest...
Hold on a second. Are you suggesting that there's leaks in the Arsenal dressing room? Quick, so can we get someone to send an email saying that if it's leaked, that would be considered gross misconduct, only for it to be leaked 2 hours later? That's what usually happens.
And then the old finger point, it wasn't me, it was him. Yeah. No, but it's obviously, like people don't think that that's a big thing. But if you're going into that game as Graham Potter and let's say you find out Thursday or Friday, the way you change training on Friday night and what you do in the meeting on Saturday morning is so much easier. Because you're like, right, they can't really run in behind there, get a higher line than we probably would do. Actually, if they do break out of that, let's just sit in bait to fall because they'll have to shoot from 30 yards, which is what I made out, Alex, that they were doing from your commentary.
They had one real chance in the second half. Trossard had a shot saved by the legs of Areola, but apart from that, it was all shots from distance or crosses aimed up at Marino. And, as I say, he struggled, to really know what he should be doing.
It was all fair for him, to be fair.
Well, you can dress it up how you like, but Arsenal have the fourth best attack in the league. And you can finger point at Marino, who's just coming in to do a job. You can blame the referees for too many sendings off, or you can blame indiscipline if you want. But the truth is that goals cost you if you don't score enough of them. You can have the second best attack if you've got the best defence and still compete for the league. But you can't score fewer goals than both Manchester City and Tottenham and Liverpool and then expect to be competing at the top level. I mean, it's pretty basic. You need to score goals, and they don't do that. When the chips are down and they need a goal, they find it more difficult than anybody else who's going for big honours this season to get one.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at Mikel Arteta because some of his substitutions have been bizarre this season. I think it was the Everton game when he took off Martin Ødegaard. On Saturday, he takes off Declan Rice and brings on Zinchenko. I'm not really too sure what the thinking is behind those type of changes.
Right? There's not enough in the squad. There is not enough creativity in the squad. And yes, and I think everyone will probably be battering us saying, yeah, but they're missing their four best players. Yeah, well, that's what happens over the course of a season. You do lose players. What you've got to do is find solutions. They haven't done that. And I think that's been a real problem. And it must be so disappointing and dispiriting for Mikel Arteta because I think he's done a really good job over the 5 years that he's been there to bring them back to relevancy. They're a team that are always up there now challenging for the title. But actually, this was the season where they probably should have got over the line. It'd be interesting how he uses this going forward to see if they can come again next year.
Yeah, I agree. And also, they've had a good year. They've lost 3 games all season. It feels like they've lost 10 because the draws have really hurt them. And, you're talking about the squad. He did make some decisions where he's let Emmanuel Smith-Rowe leave. He's let Eddie Nketiah leave. Now, granted, these people aren't massive improvements on what they would have, but at least they would have a focal point in Eddie Nketiah. The striker knows what he's doing. I just think that when you let these people go, you're normally letting them go to trim the squad size. Let's say you let 3 go, Sam, but you want to go get 1 quality player. And then in the last window, so I don't feel that they did enough, anywhere near enough. To get Calafiori, I don't think that was an area of real concern. Go get Moreno, I don't think that was an area of real concern either. So while I do feel a little bit sorry for him in terms of their finishing second again, there's some serious questions that he needs to answer from a transfer point of view.
Okay, just a quick word on West Ham, who I think Crook was already mentioned were very, very good in the game and well disciplined, and Graham Potter deserves credit for that. And that fella that plays on the right hand side, Wan-Bissaka, he was good, wasn't he? I mean, where did they get him from, Crook? Because Manchester United really need a decent right wing back. Could he do that job for them? Is that possible?
We'll move on, shall we? Move on to May the 25th.
Newcastle 4, Nottingham Forest 3. Newcastle and Nottingham Forest will be excited by the rest of the season. They don't want May the 25th to come too soon. They're two sides that can upset the apple cart and get into the Champions League places, no doubt about that. This was a brilliant game. 7 goals, 4 of them in 11 minutes on a crazy first half spell. Both will have to tighten up, though, and then some if they're going to compete in the Champions League, though, Troy.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this was a game that we spoke about yesterday on Match of the Day. I thought Forest looked really, for the first time ever, they looked like they let their ego come in. It looked like the St. James's pitch was massive. Normally, when we watch Forest, they're really compact, they're together. And if anything, when they break away, it's Chris Wood and the 2 wide men, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi. But yesterday, it was like 5s and 6s going and just leaving 2 at the back. It was so kamikaze. I think that'll be the biggest frustration for Forest and their management team. But Newcastle, when they turn it on, my God, they're good. They're really good. And they've got a striker who Arsenal could have signed not too long ago and decided not to take a punt on him. But good luck trying to get him now. That's 150 million at least. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he really is. And we'll come on to him in just a second. But why have Forest started to concede so many goals? Because this isn't actually a one-off. In fact, going back over the last 6 games, they've conceded 16 goals. 16 goals in 6 games. That's quite a lot of goals for a team that prior to that had kept 5 clean sheets in a row. And bearing in mind, in the middle of that run, that 6-game run, they won 1 match 7-0. So, I mean, what is the problem? Does mixing the sort of 3 and the 4, as he has been doing over the last couple of games, cause them a problem, Crook?
Yeah, I wonder if they've come away a little bit from what made them successful at the start of the season as well, which was obviously soaking up a lot of pressure, not really wanting to have the ball, just digging in, being defensively resolute, and then using the pace of their wide players to hit on the counter as they've got themselves into a good position to challenge for Champions League football. I wonder subconsciously if they're trying to be a bit more on the front foot, and maybe that's working against them. But I think there was always going to be a dip with Forest, because it's very difficult for a club with their resources to sustain a top 4 challenge over the course of the season. But this is a huge period of games coming up, isn't it, to make sure they don't fall away, because Troy's already mentioned the quality of teams who are coming up from behind, and they've all got more experience of being in this position than Forest have. So I'm interested to see how they bounce back over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they've got 3 really big games, haven't they? They've got Arsenal at home, Manchester City at home, Aston Villa away. They've got some soft ones in there as well, 2 games against Ipswich and 1 against Manchester United on the 1st of April.
Sam, also, the one that what no one's really talking about is, when you have these, they were the surprise package of the first half of the year. And then when you play them the second time, you kind of figure them out and go, right, now you give them the respect as well. So, right, when we lose the ball, we're going to not try and pressure and we'll drop off and let them have the ball. Then the mistakes kick in. And they've played 2 teams so far in Bournemouth and Fulham back-to-back in terms of about 2 games. Bournemouth, they drew 1-1 first game of the season, then lost 5-0, and Fulham beat them both times. So you're starting to see a trend now that when they play the team the second time, they lose. I think it's 4 teams they played before back-to-back now. They've got 3-1, the one being that 7-0 against Brighton.
I know you don't like stats, Troy, but we pulled them out from yesterday anyway, and Newcastle certainly won it on the XG 3.05 to 2.15. Perry Groves and I had a bit of a disagreement on the Sunday session yesterday. He said Newcastle players pick and choose their games. I took umbrage at that, citing the fact that they'd won 13 of 16 games. Let's just repeat that, and I know you mentioned it at the top of the programme. 13 of 16 matches, W's, not unbeaten, W's. What do you think?
I like Pezza, but he's got this one wrong, isn't he? Again, he should stick to just talking about Arsenal, leave the real football chat to us.
He was probably in a grumpy mood after Saturday, in fairness.
Yeah.
Do you know what he did say to me at half-time? I know it takes it back a bit to the previous game, but he described the second half as Arsenal's most important 45 minutes of the season. Trouble is, nobody told the players that.
Whoops-a-daisy. That's the standout fixtures from the weekend, but with a full lineup midweek, should we have a little look ahead to some of the big things that could be happening? This week, talkSPORT has live commentary of every single one of the midweek round of matches over talkSPORT, talkSPORT 2, and Talk Radio, also on the talkSPORT app as well. It's so comprehensive, our coverage this week, that you will need at least two pairs of ears. Tottenham Man City on Wednesday might take on a bit more significance. Tottenham have won their last three in the Premier League. Should there be an asterisk, though, next to those games, Crook? Because those wins have come where they rode their luck against Brentford, against Ipswich, and against Manchester United. They will face a different level of opponent in midweek, won't they?
Yeah, although City not pulling up any trees at the moment. And actually, they rode their luck against Ipswich. Liam Delap could have had a hat-trick inside the first 10 minutes in that game. Obviously, then Tottenham asserted control and ran out fairly comfortable winners on the scoreboard at least. But City should be a step up in class for opponent, but Tottenham have got a habit of getting good results in this fixture, except when they need a good result to stop Arsenal winning the league. But obviously, you mentioned already, one at the Etihad, there was a period, wasn't there, when City couldn't buy a win at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I'm intrigued to see how this works out. Ange Postecoglou is slowly but surely getting players back, and obviously that is going to improve Spurs.
Yeah, is there a sense of revenge, though, from Manchester City here, beaten 4-0 at the Etihad Stadium? Will they be sort of thinking to themselves, no, come on, we've got to show the true side here?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's professional pride at stake as well, right? Because we say how bad of a season City are having. It's only because they've been so good that to still be in the top four is basically what most teams are trying to do all year. I just feel that Spurs are coming into that space now where 5 injuries is all they've got left. And again, 5 is normally quite a lot, but when you've had 12, it feels like that's manageable. If they could get Mickey van der Ven back, I think you could see them going on a big run towards the end of the season. I'm not saying they'll get into Europe or anything like that, but finishing the top half of the season and be like, right, we're ready to go next year. I just wonder if Mr. Crook will be nice to Ange at any point after this.
Well, we'll see. We'll see on the results, won't we? I mean, I suppose the big question is how you manage the season. It is about managing the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in truth, they're not going to get into Europe via the league. So those matches aren't as important in the Premier League as the ones that are upcoming in the cup competitions. Correct, Crook?
Yeah, it's all about the Europa League for Tottenham, isn't it? And I think they've been handed a more favourable draw than, say, Manchester United. I think they'll certainly get past AZ Alkmaar. So there's every chance they can kick on. And if they do win the Europa League, Ange will deliver on his promise that he always wins a trophy in his second season, and they'll be in the Champions League. So I think the key really is to be competitive in the Premier League, but not take any unnecessary risks. And they have done that over the course of the season, rushing players back too early. I'd be surprised if that happens all the time they're in the knockout stages in Europe.
Focus on the Europa League, which I think is probably going to be the same philosophy for Manchester United, who have got a favourable draw this week. They've got Ipswich Town. I said on the Sunday session that the United first half performance away at Everton at the weekend was the worst ever 45 minutes I have ever seen from a Manchester United team. Can you think of another one, a worse one?
Well, they get worse by the week, so the worst one's probably just around the corner, to be honest. I'm just looking, actually, that game's on Wednesday night. I'm not working, so I'm going to have to watch it, which is really unfortunate.
You don't have to watch it. There's better games to watch, with all due respect.
They pull you in.
I listen to it as well, considering that we're a radio show.
But they pull you in, don't they? Do you know what? I was so angry.
Good brand loyalty there, Troy.
No, don't you start on that. Are you working for talkSPORT or TNT today?
How many games are you doing for talkSPORT this week? I'm doing Tuesday night, Thursday night, and next Monday night for talkSPORT. How many matches are you going to?
Tuesday and Friday for me. So
just 2 for you. Okay, so I'm doing more than you. All right. Okay, keep going.
Anyway, move on. I was so angry.
Oh, quick! Change direction.
I was so angry with the lack of effort in that first half. Again, it's not just about lack of ability. Clearly it's a very bad Manchester United team, but it's not as bad as that first half performance. It was a lack of desire, a lack of commitment, a lack of willingness just to do the basics. And I was so angry that I couldn't even fist pump either of the goals in the second half. I was not interested, honestly. And when Onana messes up and causes panic and it ends up in a penalty, you think, well, they deserve that. They didn't really deserve anything out of the game for the way they played in that first half. And I think Ruben Amorim, actually, his emotions were were quite similar when he spoke to you afterwards. So,
Oh, he was furious. Honestly,
yeah.
I actually thought he was going to punch someone. He was really angry. I asked him about the penalty decision. Were you relieved when they overturned the penalty at the end? And he went, I just can't even think about that. I can't get out of my head that first 45 minutes, Troy.
Yeah, exactly the same as me. So we don't just look alike; we think alike now. Me and Ruben. But
You don't look anything like him. You don't. I'm really sorry. I don't know where you got this from. I know you want to be like a sort of Ruben Amorim lookalike, but there's nothing similar about the two of you, apart from the fact that you occasionally spend some time on holiday in the same country.
Yeah, that's much needed, by the way. But you say it should be straightforward against Ipswich. It won't be. It wasn't straightforward against Southampton. We made them look like Real Madrid. They're the worst team the Premier League's ever seen. They outplayed us for 80 minutes. Leicester in the FA Cup. Honestly, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be terrible again.
Do you know the thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around? When Amorim's asking this Man United team to do what he wants to do, it looks so rigid and so stiff. But then when you're 2-0 down at 70-odd minutes and, the big players, your Fernandes, step up and go, right, I'm going to do it on my own now. You look better.
Yeah, but Troy, that's always been the case. That was the case under Erik ten Hag. It's the case under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. This Manchester United team are better when there's chaos. They are better when they're chasing a game with 10 minutes to go and they just have to throw the kitchen sink at it. That is what they're good at. They're good at taking advantage of chaos. Go back and have a look at some of the performances. I'll take you back to the FA Cup run a couple of seasons ago when they played West Ham at home and Fulham at home, and they would score in the last minutes. Look at that Manchester United-Liverpool game, which was brilliant last year for the neutral, but actually it was just a chaotic mess, and the only reason that they won it was because it was that. That is when they win football matches. That is when they're at their best. They don't follow instruction properly. They don't know how to play in these choreographed patterns. I don't know whether or not that's because they don't take on information or they don't believe in it. I don't know. But it does not work for them. We haven't talked about relegation much, but is that done too, Troy?
I don't know. I've still got a little bit of hope for Ipswich. Again, obviously, you just said they've got Man United. They will feel that that's a game that they can definitely get points from. Wolves, I know they're 5 points clear, but a lot of luck in that game where they beat Bournemouth. That, for me, that's never a sending off. He's won the ball. Unfortunately, hits a ball that makes his foot go up. Anyone who's played the game would tell you that that's not a red card. A yellow, potentially.
I don't know. Because I had this on Sunday. Mickey Gray, Perry Groves, other professionals told me on Sunday that they thought it was a sending off. I spoke to the PGMOL. I spoke to officials that are in the game, and they tell me that was the right intervention and it was a sending off because he doesn't play the meat of the ball. He plays the top of the ball and therefore then puts himself into a dangerous position to inflict damage on the opponent.
Do you know one thing that infuriates me more than FA sub is when older pros who know the game and now try to go, but the rules are different. I get the rules are different. But no one thought in that real-time moment, that's a dangerous tackle. That's a reckless tackle. It's because he's leading from across his body with his right foot. He's hit the top of the ball, which then makes him go up. There's no power in that. There's no danger in Ait Nouri being hurt. By the way, as soon as he got sent off, Ait Nouri was straight back up.
Yeah.
I understand how it looks and all of that. It's not. It's absolutely not a sending off. But they got that. Also, the goal. Two Bournemouth players missed a header. It breaks to Cunha, and he's obviously got unbelievable ability and puts it away. I'm just not convinced with this Wolves team. They may just have enough to stay up, but if I was Ipswich, I'd be like, we could catch them.
Interesting. Okay, we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, I've been giving you a little bit of stick, Crook, about Manchester United, and we've been enjoying it. You squirming. So we'll give you a turn now because Chelsea play Southampton on Tuesday night. What are Chelsea?
Oh, wow. That's a brilliant question. But they're what we've been calling them out for being all season. They're a team with some very talented young players, but they lack leadership. And that's why when the chips are down, quite often they'll be on the wrong end of the result. They haven't got a goalkeeper worthy of the name. And, you look at the mistake that Jurgensen made at Villa. It's the type of mistake that if Sanchez was in net, he would have made as well. So he's got a big problem there. Neither of his frontline goalkeepers are good enough. And they
What
don't
about the
have
one they blown out to Bournemouth? He's not bad.
well, he had a great game, didn't he, Kepa?
Yeah.
He probably is their best keeper. And they still don't have a number 9. You know, it was a combination, wasn't it, of Cole Palmer at times in the false 9. Enzo Fernandez obviously did all right in that position. But you can't spend £1 billion and be lacking at both key areas of the pitch. So I think
well clearly you can.
I think this is a great game for Chelsea. You know, they if you remember, they rested half their team and destroyed Southampton at St Mary's. So they're going to win. You know, even though they're not in a great vein of form, they will beat Southampton. And just in terms of that relegation battle, I sort of get Troy's point, but I think Wolves are comfortably too good for Ipswich. Ipswich have won fewer games this season than Leicester. Now, we all talk about how bad Southampton and Leicester are. Is there a danger that Kieran McKenna, because he's a young British coach, is getting a bit of a free pass here? Bearing in mind that they've spent more than those other two teams.
I think he's probably getting more of a free pass because he's taken a team up from League One and the Championship successive seasons, and they're still the most likely to stay up out of the 3 that came up from the Championship last season.
Eddie Howe took a team from League One into the Premier League. And they made
you love Eddie. We get it. You love Eddie. We've been through that before. But I will say with Ipswich, though, right? You have to remember, they are also the team that's thrown away the most points from winning positions. So they could shore up the back line. They could turn those ones that have gone the other way into wins. Look, they've got nice games to still come. They've still got to play Wolves. That's a massive game. They've still got Everton. And a lot of the teams they've still got Leicester left. A lot of the teams they will be playing, like West Ham, Brentford, won't have much to play for between now and the end of the season.
They lost to Southampton. It's almost a criminal offence.
Talking about Southampton, they're going into the game against Chelsea with the best strike force. We do that.
We've certainly got a better strike force than Chelsea have right now. Anyway, we were talking about Chelsea against Southampton, but Crook, because he gets these sort of pet projects into his head, and battering Kieran McKenna for spending 129 million quid has been one that he has wanted to get on a hobby horse all season.
I just expected them to be more competitive, but in terms of Chelsea, they're not going to finish in the top 5, are they? They're not going to qualify for the Champions League.
I told you that earlier in the season.
Yeah. Mate, I'll take a friendly £10 bet with you that Ipswich beat United.
Here we go again.
What's that got to do with Chelsea?
No, you started it.
About Ipswich. You made it about Ipswich and they're not being competitive. I'll take a friendly £10 bet with you.
I'll take that bet with you. I'll take that bet.
Okay, well, that's great. You know, that's brilliant.
Charity bet, obviously. Charity.
We're all on a charity bet there. Just on Chelsea, I said this on Sunday, and tell me if you disagree with me. And I took aim mainly, I suppose, at the sporting directors and the ownership, because basically it looks to me like what they've done is they've gone out and they've tried to sort of, they've used sort of hedge fund principles, haven't they? They've bought commodities that are young and have high ceilings to improve and value that can go through the roof. And they've decided to accumulate all of those and then hope that their value will go up. The problem is that doesn't translate to a sporting context, because in order to improve the value of the commodities that you've bought, you have to have a successful team framework. And you don't have a successful team framework if you've just got the best young kids from around Europe who have been told since they were 7 or 8 that they're the best kid in that particular academy. When you stick them all together, they all think they're the best, and they don't do the things that the coach or the manager wants them to do. And therefore, you end up having a team that, when the chips are down, isn't able to play within a framework and therefore get the necessary points. It is a team game at the end of the day, Troy.
Absolutely. Do you think as well, Maresca has fallen into the trap? So if you remember, when they had the opportunity to go top, I believe, not too long ago, he was the one playing it down. Now he's playing down the top 4. Do you think he's fallen into that trap with these young players? And exactly, I agree with everything you just said about the young players being the best at all their things and never really being told anything harsh and happen to grab a team by the horns and go, let's go and get after it. I think he's played a massive part in allowing that culture of it doesn't matter if we win or lose. His latest comments talking about we're going to win only our home, try and win our home games is to me baffling. And I know I look at your face. It's like I don't get where that's come from. Rory Jennings said, and again, Rory's obviously a passionate Chelsea fan. He was like, he looks at the side of the pitch like he's just been dragged from a championship team and thrown into a massive team and goes, figure it out. One sub at the weekend against Aston Villa. I think he gets a bit of a pass as well in this
Yeah,
madness.
well, I mean, look, I think he deserves scrutiny, but then who put him in there in the first place? I mean, who thought that after one season as a frontline manager in the Championship, that all of a sudden he had the credentials to take over a team that was supposed to be fighting to finish in the top four? You know, that doesn't seem like the greatest fit to me. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of other managers that have earned their corn and have shown that they've got the ability to manage at the top level. He has never done that before. It seemed a strange appointment. He's done okay, actually, in the grand scheme of things, bearing in mind the sort of soup that he inherited. But if you look at the team and you talk about the substitutes, well, what substitutions would you have made? Because you look at the bench that they had on Saturday, and it didn't look like an under-21s team. It looked like an under-18s bench. I mean, it was just full of kids. In fact, there were kids on there that I'd never heard of on the bench. And that's no disrespect to those kids. That Chelsea are now plumbing into the under-18s and the under-17 team because of the fact that they don't seem to have enough numbers now. Now, maybe that's because of injury, and everyone's had injury. But they trimmed the squad to such an extent that they ended up now not having enough players.
Could they have bought anyone though? Crookie,
Well, but they've spent all their money.
Yeah, but they got rid of people, didn't they?
They spent all their money and everybody else's money as well.
Yeah, that's the problem. You know, they're not immune to PSR, and I think they're going to have to try and trim the squad again in the summer in order to buy that number 9, which is a priority. I wonder if Kepa might end up having a future back at Stamford Bridge.
Well, they have to, because you're not going to get another goalkeeper for the amount of money they've got to spend. So you're going to have to take someone that you've got and make them better. It's the only thing you can do. And the problem is that these sporting directors that have spent the last 2.5 years telling everybody how great they are, and I saw them do an interview back in October, basically patting themselves on the back. I mean, they're now going to probably preside over a team that won't qualify for the Champions League and look like they're lacking in key departments going into, what is it now, 3rd, 4th season?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if they win the Conference League? They go into the Europa, correct?
What happens if they don't win the Conference League?
Well, Fiorentina are lurking in the final potentially, aren't they? So, yeah.
And also the big thing with Chelsea, and you talk about their recruitment. If you remember, and I think this is really indicative of this Chelsea team, they ostracised Chalobah at the start of the year, threw him in the Bob squad, get him out of it. He's not good enough. Goes to Palace, starts showing he's good, starts showing what he's really capable of, which we all knew he was. Oh, actually, let's bring him back. It just shows it stinks of no planning, no thought process. That we just know better. We're just going to throw mud at the wall and see what happens.
And get rid of Disassi, who you kept in the squad because you thought that Chalobah wasn't as good as him. And then when Chalobah comes back, you move Disassi on. But actually, the truth is what you've really done is you thought to yourself, oh, there's a saleable asset there in Chalobah. We'll have him for 6 months. We'll bring him back for 6 months. And at the end of the season, someone will buy him. The problem is you put him into a framework, which again isn't particularly well structured. So he hasn't looked as good at Chelsea as he looked at Crystal Palace. And that value that he earned in the 6 months that it was at Palace has now depreciated again. So you messed up again.
I think the brutal truth is when you look at the team, how many of the players are capable of being in a position to challenge for a Premier League title and playing regularly in the Champions League? Obviously, Cole Palmer, although I think his body language has been really poor during their recent matches, and that's an issue that Maresca is going to have to deal with.
He ain't done anything wrong, that kid. That kid's basically propped them up for the last 18
So we'll give him a pass, but I think he's getting frustrated with the lack of quality around him. I think Pedro Neto, if he stays fit, I think can play at the top level. Enzo Fernandez, I think, has had a really good season. Caicedo, is that about it?
I did, when I'm just looking at the team sheet, Palmer, yes. Caicedo, yes. And then you go into Fernandez, maybe. Reece James, if you could ever stay fit. That's it.
Again, that's not much to show for £1 billion, is it? No.
Well, anyway, that was uplifting. Right, live commentary of Chelsea-Southampton is 8:15 on Tuesday night, live on talkSPORT. It is one of 10 live games that we've got for you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But we don't stop there, right? So we've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single game available on talkSPORT, talkSPORT 2, the Talk Radio Network. And then on Friday, we've got Aston Villa against Cardiff live with Alex Crook, who is going to be there commentating on that game. And then Saturday, more commentaries from the FA Cup, and Sunday and Monday night as well. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, Europe is back. So if you want live football, you know what to do. Download the talkSPORT app. You also get the Premier League All Access podcast on there, but you also get Troy Deeney. He is on every blooming day. Talk about rinsing a contract. They are absolutely rinsed. What? Well,
contract. We don't get that, do we, Brookie?
Whatever you've got that ties you to working for talkSPORT. We were delighted about it, but Troy is on all the time. It's great. It's Talk Troy. Troy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm going to enjoy my day off now. Thank you very much.
Okay, and the Fun Boy Friday is back on Friday, isn't it? Which is good news. We're looking forward to that as well.
Absolutely.
I'll see you then. Cheers, Crookie.
Looking forward to the week, mate. We're all together Friday, aren't we? Then you and I are travelling to Villa.
We literally just said that, but he was too busy on his phone to even listen to the last bit of the podcast. Troy, how are we going to deal with this? What's wrong with this guy?